Amidst so much news that is coming in from Russia's invasion of Ukraine, there is one name that has taken this center stage, and that is the name of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, a 44-year-old Russian-speaking former comedian of Jewish background. Zelensky was elected as Ukraine's president just under 3 years ago on a promise to bring peace. But unlike any other politician, this young Prez is going on ground zero, calling the shots and even firing them. Perhaps it is this resolve and fighting spirit that has made Russia soften its position now and ask for the talks, which Ukraine has now agreed to participate if it is held at the border of Belarus. And we wouldn't be surprised if this man is able to restore peace in Ukraine on his own terms and save his people from further mayhem. But less than 4 years ago, Zelensky was one of Ukraine's most popular TV comedians, starring in a satirical TV show and performing in a troupe where he played the piano with his penis as well for 5 minutes. Yes, there is actually a video on YouTube where he, along with his partner, is seen playing the piano with his pants down. But that was before Zelensky won the Ukrainian presidential election in a landslide victory back in 2019, after much of his campaign was allegedly bankrolled by one of Ukraine's richest and the most corrupt men, as per a New York Times report. In a scenario that even the writers of his old show, Servant of the People, couldn't have dreamed up, Zelensky is now the leader at the center of a new war in Europe and at risk of assassination as Russia launched a full-scale invasion of the country on Thursday night. In a short video address released right after midnight on Friday in Ukraine, Zelensky said the Russians want to destroy Ukraine politically by taking down the head of the state. "I'm staying in the government quarters together with others," Zelensky said. "The enemy has designated me as target number 1 and my family as target number 2. Zelensky, who was so far unknown to the rest of the world, is now a household name. Even his critics, who often discounted his showbiz past as frivolous, now say that Zelensky has more than risen to the occasion, calling out their powerful and rogue neighbor whose invasion has so far left at least 64 civilians killed and more than 160,000 displaced in Ukraine as per a United Nations Relief Agency. Of course, the toll could be much bigger, but we don't know as of yet. This is also besides all the men that are fighting on the front line that the two countries will lose, as no one really wins in the end." On Thursday, 3 hours before the Russian troops hit Ukraine, Zelensky took his message to the Russian people in a powerful plea to stop and question what their country was doing. "What are you fighting for? And with whom?" he asked in the address posted at 2 a.m. not long after Vladimir Putin outlined his reasons for attacking Ukraine. When addressing Ukrainians both on TV and online, Zelensky exhorted citizens to hold the line against the Russians and fight for their country. Taking to the same social media which led to his victory as the accidental president, Zelensky tweeted from Kyiv early on Thursday, the day when this war began. "We have severed diplomatic relations with Russia. For all those who have not yet lost their conscience in Russia, it is time to go out and protest against the war with Ukraine." Zelensky called for martial law and remained defiant as Russian and Belarusian forces hit Ukraine in the kind of land, air and sea invasion that has not been seen ever since World War II. They even blocked the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv as residents tried to flee. Russia treacherously attacked our state in the morning as Nazi Germany did in World War II. Zelensky's tweet read, "As of today, our countries are on different sides of the world history. Russia has embarked on a path of evil, but Ukraine is defending itself and won't give up its freedom no matter what Moscow thinks." This is one of his tweets as well. But the daredevil frontliner avatar of Zelensky that you are seeing today wasn't something that many believed in earlier. In fact, international reports claim that he was originally thought to be the puppet of the very powerful Ukrainian mafia called Kolomoisky, but quite swiftly, Zelensky rebranded himself as a crusader against oligarchs. This even as he evolved from being a native Russian speaker brought up in pro-Russian eastern Ukraine into more of a nationalist that we see today. A Ukrainian expert wrote in 2019 when he came to power, "Though many commentators label Zelensky a Ukrainian Donald Trump because of his lack of political experience and background in entertainment, Zelensky is in fact an adept political actor." Another long-time Ukraine researcher said he's kept a unified government and has not gone along with either what Russia or the US wanted. He also knows that he's in the middle of a bigger power game between superpowers and he seems to know what he's doing. He's handling himself pretty well. He is his own man. He knows what's really at stake, but he knows what happened to Viktor Yanukovych. Now, who is Viktor? He was the 71-year-old fourth president of Ukraine who was overthrown during the 2014 Maidan Revolution. And this was the turning point in Russia-Ukraine relations, more like a flashpoint actually, because this is where Putin's reasons to attack Ukraine stem from. After Viktor was defeated in 2014, President Putin started accusing Ukraine of being taken over by extremists. Russia has also long resisted Ukraine's move towards the European Union and NATO. While announcing Russia's invasion, Putin accused NATO of threatening our historic future as a nation. He has claimed modern Ukraine was entirely created by communist Russia and is now a puppet state controlled by the West. Russia's deputy foreign minister, in fact, has said, "For us, it's absolutely mandatory to ensure Ukraine never ever becomes a member of NATO." What Russia's plans are for Ukraine are not known as of now, but it faces stiff resistance from a deeply hostile population. And that we all know, we can all see it right now. But coming back to Ukrainian President Zelensky, did you know that he played a fictional character on his show, Servant of the People, a 30-something high school teacher, this is what he played, who wakes up one morning to learn that he has been elected the country's president with over 60% of the popular vote. In reality, he won over 73% of the votes. In the show, one of his students put a video of him ranting against corruption in the country online and it went viral. And after that, rest was the history, as they say. Zelensky and his shows were often satires on corruption in Ukraine and also showed what the country could look like if given a shot at democracy. And he did. Zelensky, who grew up in Russian-speaking southeast Ukraine, has not been a bad leader by any stretch of imagination even before Thursday's invasion by Russia. On Friday, he was at war in Kyiv. On Saturday, unshaven and dressed in khaki, Zelensky addressed the nation in a video warning that saboteurs tasked with his assassination were closing in. He said, "I will stay in the capital." Zelensky, who has been married to Olena Zelenska since 2003, has a son named Kirill and a daughter named Alexandra. He's shown that he has a knack for being at the front and center of an international scandal. Donald Trump's first impeachment stemmed from a now notorious phone call with Zelensky in July 2019, in which Trump leaned on him to investigate Joe Biden's family corruption in Ukraine. The call also put the suspect and the lucrative business dealings of Joe and Hunter Biden in Ukraine into the spotlight. But today, all of that is squarely behind him. None of that matters. What matters is that he is the last man standing. Standing for his country when Russia's brazen invasion of Ukraine has left with so much death and destruction at a time when we are not even out of a dreaded pandemic that is killing us anyway. At such a time, this young Ukrainian president is calling on his citizens to take up the arms and defend the nation. It is by all means an unequal war, and the whole world is only talking about sanctions. No one is really rushing to help Ukraine. It is unnerving to consider that in this day and age, any country with military power and a well-supplied arsenal can invade another sovereign nation with such brute force, and the world just mouths platitudes but doesn't do anything. The Ukrainian ministry said thousands of volunteers were signing up to fight, with 18,000 rifles handed out in Kyiv alone. Today, as we watch in horror, Ukraine is slowly but surely scripting a new chapter in history. The citizens of this country have put up a fierce resistance against Russia, and President Zelensky seems to be reflecting that spirit. In fact, twice amid Russia's attempts to punch their way into Kyiv overnight, he posted selfie videos outdoors to dispel disinformation that he had fled or ordered a surrender. Something we have seen happening in the recent past when leaders have fled at the first given opportunity when enemy strikes. But Zelensky declared, "I am here. We won't lay down our arms. We will defend our state," he said on Saturday morning. The clip had 4 million views within just 2 hours of posting. On Thursday, he even summoned the spirit of Winston Churchill, echoing his 1946 Iron Curtain speech, seen by some historians as marking the start of the Cold War with the former Soviet Union, when Russia and Ukraine were a part of the same socialist state. "What do we hear today?" Zelensky asked. "It's not just rocket explosions, fighting, and the roar of an aircraft. This is the sound of a new Iron Curtain lowering and closing Russia off from the civilized world." Zelensky came to power with a promise of peace for which many Ukrainians were desperate after 5 years of conflict with Russia-backed separatists in Donbas region. He quickly met with Vladimir Putin and the leaders of France and Germany in the hope of finding a way to implement the Minsk agreement, under which a package of measures was agreed upon. This included a ceasefire, withdrawal of heavy weapons from the front line, release of prisoners of war, constitutional reform in Ukraine, and restoring control of the state border to the Ukrainian government. But Vladimir Putin declared that the Minsk agreements no longer existed and that it was Ukraine and not Russia that was to be blamed for their collapse. Russia then invaded Ukraine last Thursday on 24th February. I've been fortunate enough to go to Kyiv in Ukraine in August 2019, just 2 months after Zelensky's dramatic landslide victory as the president. Despite its living standards, which are said to be among the lowest in Europe, I found Ukraine to be a happy country with beautiful, talented people who believed in living their life despite all their problems. Its historic turmoil, like any other former Soviet Union country, was writ large in its city center, museums and statues, but the country sure knew how to party. On weekends, the arterial main road of Kyiv would shut down and it would turn into one big carnival with song and dance echoing throughout the city. Spirits would flow freely in the clubs and bars, and everyone would be outside their home till wee hours in the morning. Much like today, but the reasons are very, very different. The lively streets of Kyiv have now turned into war zones, and the metro stations used for daily commute have turned into bunkers for survival. NATO has called this attack brutal, wholly unprovoked and unjustified. In a statement, NATO said, "We deplore the tragic loss of life, enormous human suffering and destruction caused by Russia's actions. Peace on the European continent has been fundamentally shattered. The world will hold Russia as well as Belarus accountable for their actions. We call on all states to condemn this attack. No one should be fooled by Russian government's barrage of lies." Ukraine has also asked India for political support at the UN after New Delhi abstained from voting at the Security Council. As per an AFP report, despite being a democracy and a member of the Quad grouping with Australia, Japan and the United States, India has neither explicitly condemned Moscow's actions nor called them an invasion. Instead, it has repeatedly referred to it as developments in Ukraine. India's foreign ministry released a statement on Saturday calling it a conflict situation and saying that PM Narendra Modi had reiterated his call for an immediate cessation of violence and a return to dialogue. Friends, every time a news notification with the word Ukraine or Russia flashes on my screen, my heart skips a beat. For all the beautiful people I met in Ukraine, my team and I can only pray and hope that peace is restored in Ukraine as soon as possible and no more lives are lost. But this is a very, very dark reminder of the times that we live in. As news of Russia making deeper advances into Ukraine makes headlines, it is also indicative of the chilling reality of just how fragile, helpless and unfair is the world that most of us live in. And now I would like to close this video with this placard that I saw online, which in 2 lines sums up what President Zelensky and his people are going through. It reads, "If Russia stops fighting, there will be no war. If Ukraine stops fighting, there will be no more Ukraine." Please leave your thoughts in comments. We can connect on Instagram, Facebook and on Twitter. It's @ReviewRon and @RonakKotecha on Twitter respectively. If you found this report helpful and informative in any way, then please show your support by liking, sharing, commenting and subscribing to this channel. Hit the bell icon if you've already subscribed to this channel. But as always, even if you don't do any of these things, please take care of yourself and those around you. Jai Hind.